Welcome to the Kickstand Effect. I'm your host, Travis Garland, founder of Kickstand AI and My Compliance Citadel. In today's episode, we're diving into the rapid shift facing tech leaders in 2026, moving away from the old school executive titles and leaning heavily into human and AI collaboration. Joining me is the brilliant Tami Reiss, often known as Tami from Miami, who brings a fresh, battle tested perspective on how modern organizations are reshaping leadership. Together, we'll explore what it truly takes to govern, deputize, and align AI agents within your company using strategic frameworks like Tami's lead and map structures. You hear us unpack why cutting costs is actually the worst pitch to make to an AI skeptic board right now due to skyrocketing token costs, the exact three critical questions leader must ask to vet AI outputs and prevent blind trust, and how to structure agent ownership across teams so tech debt and agent drift don't derail your compliance. Fast paced insight conversation packed with actionable strategies for anyone managing human AI teams. So let's jump straight into the episode. So, welcome to the podcast, Tami Reiss. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic.
Yeah, you look refreshed. You look like you've had a glow about yourself. I'm not sure what that's from, but you're
It's
looking
called
great.
the Greek sun. The Greek
Yeah,
sun.
good
Yeah.
news. Good news.
Yeah.
Um, I thank you for joining us on our podcast today. I will, as I often do, start off with a series of rapid fire questions for you, just to get a little bit of a spin on what you're thinking, what lens you're looking through, and certainly it'll probably a little bit of foreshadowing for some of the questions and topics we'll talk about in the podcast itself. But let me kick off the first few, and I'm going to try and just go like straight through them, but oftentimes they lead to a
I'm
bunch of
gonna make you
conversations.
laugh in the middle.
Yeah, I feel like you and I are going to have a tough time keeping this one square. I'm going to do my best.
All right.
So
I'm
let's,
not.
let's, let's kick this one off. So first one's first. What's a bigger asset for tech leader in 2026? A formal C-suite title or a stellar track record for human and AI collaboration?
Probably number two.
The AI collaboration. Good
Yeah.
track record.
Well, the
Um,
human and AI, like
the,
both.
the
Like
collaboration.
the knowledge of how to navigate an organization, both the people and the tools, and to to not drive yourself crazy while doing it.
Mm. I know we'll hop into some of that authority versus maybe the title and positioning, the hierarchy of organizations. You'll walk me through that, I know for sure.
But I can
Um,
tell you that like years of experience right now is at a, I don't know, like an all-time low value.
mm,
I
okay.
I was learning about what was happening at Microsoft and the shakeup that's going on right there,
Hmm.
and that there are certain people who would have otherwise been promoted and had like the right next whatever level vice president job, and it's just not the right optics right now. That
Mm,
people want fresher ideas and newer faces and familiarity with AI and other tools, and
hmm.
not being stuck in the old mindset, even if you yourself aren't one of those people. Like you could
Yeah.
be uh, early adopter, Ray Kurzweil's new best friend. I don't know, but it's it's not helping you necessarily to have years and years of executive experience at the
Hmm.
moment, as much as it has in the past.
Yeah. As much so in the past. So I know we're going to get into that. I'm gonna try and keep myself going. So um, you are often referred to as Tami from Miami. So in just one word, what is the energy surrounding AI adoption in the tech space right now from the Miami energy of Florida? What do you got for me?
We just had TEDx Miami, and it was all AI all the time,
Yeah.
but it was the human side of AI. And so it was all about how can AI actually help build communities? How can we be responsible stewards of AI and otherwise? And I'm going to stop because you have another question.
Yeah, because I said just one word and both of us just destroyed that, but that's fine. That's fine. Um, if everything is a product,
Excited. Excited is the one word.
excited. Okay, I can go with this. What's the minimum viable product of an AI era leader?
The minimum viable product of an
Mhm.
AI era
Mhm.
leader
Yeah.
is someone who is a master of influence,
Hmm.
someone who has a true growth mindset, someone who is resilient and doesn't get scared of change, and someone who can help others think critically without being stifled.
Okay. There's a lot in there to unpack, and I'm gonna
And,
challenge you at some
and that was
point.
entirely off the cuff.
so, so the question may be down the road here as we get rolling deeper into this. Why isn't that the current description of a leader now? Forgetting AI for a second, but I'm not going to let you answer that because there's another question to come. So, what is the ultimate shortcut to building cross-functional alignment when engineering and product are fighting over competing AI tools? The ultimate shortcut in building the
What are you
alignment.
like fighting over competing AI tools? Like which tool to adopt?
Yeah, it can be which tools, which platform. It could be how many tokens to use and credits to have. However you want to frame that.
I always say that whenever there's a disagreement, you should alleviate back to what our common goal is, and then have the two parties build a case for why they think their track to get there is going to make it faster or better, and have
Hmm.
an honest logical conversation about it as opposed to an emotional one where it's mine or the other side. um, and what tends to happen when that actually takes place is both sides are forced to listen to the other
Hmm.
side,
Hmm.
and they're both forced to create a business case for something as opposed to this is what I want or what my gut says. And more often than not, it's not actually that one team wins or the other. It's that you recognize that one tool might be great for a particular purpose and another one might be great for an alternative purpose. And right now, in order for us to reach this goal, it's maybe 70-30. But what's most important is we know how to work together, because
Hmm.
whatever fight we're having right now, if that creates like this, we never get anywhere.
Yeah.
I
So
was
let me.
literally talking about that last night.
It's a great segue to the next question, which is really about deputizing the individual, or I'll say in this case the thing, because the question really is, what is the one critical leadership task that you would never hand over to an AI agent?
Presenting my board deck.
That's fair. It can be very tactical. Sometimes it's strategic or decision making, judgment related, but that's perfectly fine. I
Yeah,
I
no,
love the
presenting a board deck.
deputizing that
They might
principle.
put it together, but they shouldn't be presenting it.
That's fair. That's fair. What's the hardest habit for a perfectionist, type A leader to break when learning to trust AI outputs?
So I think it has to do with the same thing that it is with humans, which is trusting that something else can do something as good as you can or faster than you can, or that even if it's slower, it's still better than you doing it because you can't do everything.
Yeah.
But specifically with AI, because it's such a black box for so many people, and chances are that leader is not sitting there in Claude Code doing it themselves. They're working with some operations person or one of their employees who's going to build it. And that's problematic. But as a perfectionist, AI is going to be wrong sometimes. And not
Mhm.
just in the hallucination negative space way, it's just going to be wrong. It's designed to get to an answer, even if that answer is incorrect, and to say so
Yeah.
with confidence. And if you're a
Oof.
perfectionist and you want the right answer, it takes a lot more programming of evals, et cetera, to make sure that agent is going to do it right.
Yes. So the point of agent confidence, I'm gonna swing back around to that for sure because I love the topic. And I also love what it means when people start talking about errors related to agents in the output. So fascinating topic. Let
And
me.
who owns it, right? A perfectionist leader wants to know whose head is on the plate.
Yes. Yeah.
or who to nicely give feedback to, or whatever. I'm calling it head on the plate, and that's a very negative way to say it, but someone needs to own that agent. Someone needs to be managing that agent. There's an HR company that recently, like a year and a half ago, got a shit ton of slack
Oh,
because they added agents to HR org charts, and people were mad about it. And I was like,
yeah.
this is the future, people. And more than anything, we need to know who's in charge of managing this agent,
Yes.
who's in
Yes.
charge of fixing it when it does something wrong. And if there's
Yeah.
no ownership of that, you're in a much worse situation.
100%. Um, I'm gonna try and squeeze that one back in there as well because agent, like seriously, I think you're. Am I interviewing you or are you interviewing me? I'm not sure which way it's going because you're sort of feeding me every single question I think that I have to ask of you, and they're great topics, which is wonderful. Let me keep this rolling. I'm gonna give you. I'm gonna skip a couple of these here because they're. Well, I'm gonna jump into some other topics. Um, let me hit. What's the number one phrase tech leaders should avoid using when trying to pitch an AI initiative to a skeptical, old school board of directors? What's the one phrase a tech leader should avoid using?
That's a good one. You made me speechless, Travis. You deserve a gold star and
Oh
like a
wow!
medal.
You can
Um,
have one skip if you want.
no, no, I'm trying to think. What's the one phrase I would tell people not to say? It probably, like, normally I talk about like agile and things like that. Like the board doesn't give a shit. I would
Hmm.
say anything that has to do with, like, saying anything that doesn't include a business outcome, right? Whether it's company valuation or revenue growth or NRR, like if what you're talking about doesn't connect to one of those three things, or operational reduction of, like, I think that, I think actually right now, today, the worst
Okay.
thing you can be saying to a skeptic AI board member is, this is going to help us cut costs. Because there is so much in the news right
Mm.
now
Mm.
of the massive costs of tokens, and how companies have eliminated humans, and now the cost of tokens is far outpacing the cost of humans, and it is out of control. And there's now this incredible, um, what's not the word resilience, but dependence on tokens. There's an incredible dependence on the AI tools to get things done, because now you have less people to get things done and the AI is supposed to do it. But if the AI wasn't set up properly, it's using too many tokens, and then you need a human to fix it.
Yes. Oh boy, we got struggles all around here.
Yes.
Um, I'm gonna
So
hit you with
don't think
one.
cost savings just yet.
Cost savings. I think that's a great thing to remember, and it does roll into things like the deputization process, that principle of making sure that you're given the right kinds of things to the right kind of people, and the movement of where AI starts to fit into it when you start talking about things like who owns agents and where the confidence is at for the outputs. All of this is going to blend together. I know it. Uh,
So can I pause for 1 second? You've
uh,
used deputizing more than once, and I love deputizing as a word, and I talk about the difference between that and delegation. Why
yeah.
are you using deputizing? Where did it come from for you?
It just came from some of the research within your organization, some of the phrasing that's been used from your content.
Okay,
So
cool.
it really,
I
frankly,
picked up on that.
yeah, it may not be a phrase that you've sort of parsed out as something that makes sense within your space of things like lead and map, but it may absolutely make sense in the space of framing the conversation of um, what the alignment of an agent and the tasks of agents versus people really how they fit together. And I think that is a space that, as an expert in that area, you
No,
fit.
I mean, lead D literally is decide and deputize. Like
Yeah.
it's in lead as an acronym. It happens to be the last verb, but I talk a lot about how deputization of your employees is a matter of you having confidence that they
Uh-huh.
can own it. And so that's the same thing when it comes to your question earlier about someone who's a perfectionist. How do you build that confidence that the agent can own it?
Hmm.
that
Yeah.
you're okay with it building the deck or it running the report or whatever it's supposed to be doing, synthesizing the research, you name it, booking the flight for
Yeah.
some people. Um, and that becomes a matter of how well did you train it? And for a leader, there's a potential that you have to deputize someone else to do the training, and there becomes the extra layer of problem. Because
Mhm.
when you're deputizing someone on your team, you can do what I say, which is I do, we do, you do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to show you it. You're going to ask me questions along the way. We're going to do it together. I'm going to correct things. You're going to ask me more questions along the way. Then you're going to do it. And I'm going to give you feedback. And you can ask me even more questions along the way. Because by the end of those 3 cycles, we're going to get a good place. Having those 3 cycles with an AI is harder. It needs to be done.
Mm.
You need to show the AI what great looks like.
Yeah.
You need to give AI feedback and have it be asking you questions as to why certain, and that's when the agent is at its best. When you're not
Mhm.
simply saying, go do this thing, figure it out for yourself. And I mean, you and I know how to train an agent, but it involves actually having a conversation with the AI.
It does. It does. You know, I might even say something like this, which is something I hear from folks quite a bit, not necessarily coaches or consultants, but people, just lay people using AI, which is, hey, I've trained it to be able to use my voice. And I'm like, that's wonderful. It's a one-sided conversation. It feels very, very good. It is affirming, it's confirming, it's confidence building, but it's in the place of you using it in a professional application, it might be one of the worst things that you can do, unless you're just talking about the generation of content. But if you're talking about its application and being an agent of critical thinking, that's a very different piece. And I think, Tami, as you're talking about it, that's really where you're hitting this, is which is, this isn't a matter of having it trained on your voice. It's a matter of having it trained to be not your assistant, but your critical coach, or your,
And I think
fill.
there's a place for everything, right?
Mhm.
So, as you said, generating content needs to have your voice. I have an AI tool. I don't think it's called an agent. I forget what GPT, like it's a custom GPT that's available to the public called the Confident Communicator. And
Mhm.
anybody can ask it a question and it will give you an answer as if it was me. It is, I have 15 years of writing about product and leadership and all these things that like there was a lot for it. And there were transcripts of my talks and podcast
Mhm.
interviews like this. So I have clients, ex-coaching clients who I give that to, and they use it on a regular basis to give them advice. And they say it is like talking to you. And that is fantastic, right? That's a way of
Hmm.
scaling myself. I also use it when I'm generating
Mhm.
content or emails. But when I'm doing other things that involve more critical things around, I'm looking for more creativity, I don't go to that GPT. I go elsewhere. So,
Mhm.
for instance, this book, this book, Unleash the Leader Within, it's under 100 pages. It was written by Claude and me because I had an article which mapped the LEAD framework, LEAD, to dozens of articles I had already written. And I said to Claude,
Mhm.
take this article structure for LEAD and build out a cohesive voice, because over 15 years I write in alternative
Yeah.
variations.
Yeah.
And let's put together a cohesive voice for this. And beyond that, I said, okay, now let's take a more modern Tami voice. This is the way I talk about it on stage right now. This is the way I lead workshops in it. And we added some of that. And then I
Mhm.
said, page 2 was originally the publisher I wanted to work with on a book. Because of timing, I have to self publish this book. Look at page 2's books and the way they edit and the way they critically think about being an editor. I said, act as a page 2 editor and run through this book.
Mhm. Yeah.
And AI can do that. But it allowed for this outside perspective of a particular perspective, not just generic AI world. And
Mhm.
it actually said, oh, a page two editor would do all of these things. And I sent it to the page two founder and I said,
Yeah.
hey, I want you to know I was working on some content and blah, 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 blah. This is what it says about you. And she was like, that is such a nice thing for Claude to say about us. It captures what we think is important. And I said, yeah, I
Yeah.
think it did, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, like, I'm obviously reading it myself and adding in stories and adjusting. Like, this isn't like, oh, Claude wrote a book or Tami wrote a book. It was my editor because I needed something fast. And in
Mhm.
3 days, I had a manuscript.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It is. It's a powerful thing, and let me extend it for a couple of other use cases. I'll extend it to things like um, the development of a minimum viable product for a landing page or a website. Right. These are things that likely are probably well within the space of anybody who's willing to take a couple of hours in an afternoon to figure out. The next element of those gets into things that are far less I'm going to call it superficial for sake of the conversation and say things like getting into newsletters and manuscripts and creating content that takes a different spin on things. And it really gets into like the next layer of that superficial landing page kind of content, then a newsletter that might be 80% public knowledge, maybe a few extra little nuggets in there for fun. And then you get into things that are creatively yours, and that's the space that as an executive that's been sitting on a board for say 30 years would say, this is what I bring to this organization, this is the value that I have, so I'm going to
Unique
spin this in.
perspective.
Yeah, that perspective, the acumen that's there, the scar tissue that's developed by making difficult decisions when you don't have all the answers sitting at your fingertips. And it's something that I've spoken with a couple of other consultants and coaches on podcasts and other speaking engagements to say, what do we think about the fact that this might be one of those generational moments where the executives that are now sitting in the boardrooms are the ones that may be the last ones that didn't have AI making their decisions or helping them make decisions for their entire career. And the reason why I say that, and I want to know your sort of coaching perspective on the who gets what part of the puzzle when you're making decisions, is when you are forced to make a decision in front of your supervisor, or describe and defend a spreadsheet in front of a board member, or negotiate a contract with your CEO sitting next to you. Those are moments for most executives that they look back on and say, that sort of carved me up. It sharpened the knife. It made a razor's edge. Like, you start getting into these kinds of like colloquialisms. But
Mhm.
where do you sit with being somebody who's seeing the transition happening within organizations and coaching leaders to be leaders? Where do you see that next generation of leaders having the most negative and the most positive impact of having used AI in their career?
So, statistically, research, all of that stuff has shown that AI is most effective in the hands of a competent person. And so there is a generation right now of people in their 30s and 40s and 50s that are fluid enough in their brains that they can adopt AI, but have learned enough to be competent in their roles.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying people in their 20s aren't yet competent, but they haven't had the wounds and the scars in the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my fears is what happens to this generation of people that are entering the workforce that has never started from scratch, that they never do anything alone, that isn't AI helping them. And how can they learn when AI is wrong?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is why a competent human is most effective, is because they know when AI is wrong. Their gut says something's wrong here. And so, what I want the youth and even the people from the 30s to the 60s who are now sitting next to other executives
Mm-hmm.
to spend the time to figure out what's going on in that person's spidey sense, because that's really what you used to get from sitting next to the person, is that they had a spidey sense about something
Mm-hmm.
and you got to learn about it in real time. And now we need to say to them, how can I get this spidey sense from you about things that might be happening faster than ever before? And pausing and reflecting and saying, I saw your face wince. Tell me
Mm-hmm.
why.
Yeah.
Tell me why. And in general, I have this format that I advise everyone to do when talking to their manager, which is don't come with a problem, right? You have to come with a solution. A lot of people talk about that, but I add a layer on top up of that. So
Okay.
come to me with the problem. Tell me what's going on. Tell me your solution. And then say to me, as your leader, what adjustments would you advise based on your context and experience?
Hmm.
Have the humility to say, my AI bot may not have gotten everything right. My buddy sitting next to me might not have given me the best advice. And
Mm-hmm.
no matter what, you have context I don't have. And I want that context and that experience and that gut so that I can develop that for myself. And if you don't ask the question, you're
Mm-hmm.
never going to learn. And you have to then say, oh, why is that important? Don't make assumptions. Oh, it must be important. Ask,
Yeah.
learn.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned earlier, the growth mindset, like that's a matter of thinking about what can I learn from others that will make me better? Because there's always something more I could be learning. There's always something more I could be doing. And every person around me has something to give me.
Hmm. So I was chatting with another coach, and she
I
made an
know.
interest.
I'm a coach.
She spun something around on me, which I really appreciate, and we're kind of touching on here. The space of um, older executives kind of saying, "Hey, young individual, here's the expectations of this role," and you just hit on something really important. And she was alluding to this as well. There's a spin that should always be investigated, which is the younger professionals that are coming in that have always used AI have a certain set of assumptions, and more importantly have a certain set of expectations of executives that executives should be asking about. And I think that that was an interesting comment. You're sort of underscoring it, and I love that you're bringing that up as well, because there's a feeling of, hey, the historical space, like I'm going to kind of usher you into, the boardroom as you progress, kind of a situation. And then there's this flip of, oof, there's moments when juniors know more than I do, knowledge wise, right? They're at their fingertips, right? They're sort of coming to you with this kind of stuff, and you're like, where the hell did you get that from? And they're like, oh, I wrote an agent to call through all of our historical records, and I put this together with our contract from 4 years ago and investigated against the TAM of this particular product, and it gave me this output, whatever it is they're going to come up with, right? And there's this moment of where does the set of guardrails, or where does the set of empathy, like where does that land? I'm gonna pause. You got something for me, Tami?
Well, so to me, part of the challenge is teaching young people how to have that moment and make it a successful moment.
Hmm.
Because if you're a junior lawyer, new associate, and you, based on your GPT, have surfaced some sort of case law that's applicable in the M&A deal you're currently blah blah blah. If you give it to the partner and don't give it to them in the right way, everyone loses.
Hmm.
But if you say to them, I surfaced this in my research, I believe it could be applicable. What do you think?
Hmm.
Just what do you think?
What's the level
What
of
would the
trust?
impact be of including this in our brief or whatever it is? And when you're asking someone's opinion, you're saying, I'm deferring to you because you know more than I do.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean I don't know anything, doesn't mean I'm not adding value,
Hmm.
but you know more. And I may know more about and like, but that then creates an opportunity for the partner to say, man, these new junior associates, it's amazing how much faster they can be productive as opposed to those young whippersnappers, they have no respect.
Yeah. Yeah. There's an assumption of empathy both ways, of curiosity both ways, trust that is laying into that relationship, and it sort of smacks me in the face of how do you how do you build that when it's not a part of your company's culture?
You build it within the culture that exists because in hierarchical cultures, those are built on, respect based on years of whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a junior person, you recognize that people who have been there for 30 years need to be spoken to in a particular way in order for them to be open.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned map earlier, so that's my framework for influence. Manifest where you want to go, assess where they want to go, promote where you can go together. But when I talk about mastering influence, I talk about how you have to actually think strategically about how you can build momentum. Sometimes that's with going straight to the executive because you get exactly what they want and you assess that and then you promote this
Mm-hmm.
connection and you're great. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's a matter of promoting to a variety of other people and creating a groundswell so they can't ignore you.
Hmm.
And understanding when to do one or the other or some combination or all of
Mm-hmm.
those things. Like when I lead trainings and influence, the most common question I'm getting right now is, but what do we do to convince someone about AI tools when they are super afraid of them? Because they're risk averse, because they're technology
Mm-hmm.
phobic, whatever it is, right? And I say to them, first of all, ask them why.
Yeah.
How did they get burned in the past? What case studies are they hearing about other people getting burned?
Mm-hmm.
Utilize that as an opportunity to say, okay, if I'm going to pitch this, it needs to hit a certain standard. And then figure out who else and what examples need to be created that mean you've generated enough momentum that they can't ignore you. And you don't say, I still want everything on my bargaining table. You
Yeah.
say, where can we meet in the middle? Where are you open to being more flexible about this?
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
understand you don't want it on our multi-million-dollar deals or on our most secure servers. Where are you okay with
Yeah. That's a conversation, Tammy, that it demands a fair amount of open communication. And I'm gonna walk into some of the pieces from the previous from our rapid fire space here around agent confidence for a quick second, because I really think that when you get into areas around risk mitigation and exposure, um, shadow AI topics kind of start to come up a little bit there. But there's this a space of um, how do I, as an executive, as a leader, how do I make sure that when folks are bringing content to me, that I can vet through them the kinds of steps they took in ensuring that the AI agent, bot, response output, whatever model they were using, produce the kind of material that I can trust. And that the space of confidence is a really interesting one here because we've all experienced the exuberance of a model producing things back to you and saying, wow, that was the most brilliant thing you've ever said, Travis, which I completely agree every single time. Like I program my agent to be completely confident driving for me because I need that as a human being. And there's times when I'm like, this is a foolish statement. I can't even believe that even came out of it. But as we start to pull AI into corporate America in deeper ways, and agents are built within companies to be able to do the things that demand non-black box actions to be followed and tracked for audits and auditors, for regulators, for insurers, and the like. How do we instill that a level of confidence? Like how do you work through when you're working with an executive or junior level staff? How do you work through the willingness to take content as it comes. How do you vet through that process?
So I would say asking 3 questions is probably helpful.
Okay.
Question one is, how different is this output than what you would have done yourself?
Okay.
And then, how is it better and how is it worse? Because if they can't answer critically why the eight, and it's always has something worse. Like if you don't identify anything that's worse, you didn't think critically about it. If you can't say to me why this is better other than it's faster,
Mm-hmm.
and if you can't tell me that, yes, I did the entire thing myself too, and this is how it's different, right? It turns out it was more accurate, or it missed this other thing, so we fixed that, right? Like originally this, and right, or its formatting is so much more consistent. Whatever it is,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
if you can't answer those 3 questions, it says to me you didn't put enough time and effort into making sure this was right.
Yeah.
And it's simple questions.
Those are very simple questions, and it leads me to the next piece, which is what I'm hearing you saying and not saying. Every single time you drop something into a prompt field, you had better had thought about what you're prompting, and two, what you expect to come out. And if you can do those,
It also has like the nature of, I as your leader, I'm not going to say what level of evals did you write,
Mm-hmm.
right? How did you ensure that this is correct, right? That's poor management. That's micromanagement. Good management is keeping it up to, the goal was for you to still create this report or whatever deck or right analysis, but do it faster and better.
Yeah.
So if you can't tell me that it got you at least where you were before and why this is better, you didn't do the thing. The goal was eliminate this task and do it through an agent.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't tell me it can do that with confidence because you've gone through enough cycles or whatever it's going to take, that you can say, this is when it has challenges, this is the challenges we overcame, this is why it's better. We still have this problem. This is where it's worse. And this is what we're doing to mitigate that issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's about the goal. And my job is to make sure we're achieving our goals. That's the difference in the type of question also.
So in the space that some might say we as leaders are losing our ability to think critically, like this sort of starts to roll into this a little bit. If you don't have the ability to start from a white piece of paper to get to something, and worse yet, you just drop something in a prompt and it produces an output, and you can't define whether or not it's even what you expected, whether or not it's better than what you expected, worse than what you expected, different in some ways, you are no better than someone who just drops in a prompt in the field with absolutely no experience. And I think you led in with this, which is the best users of AI are those that are experienced and competent people. If you have confidence in your hand, AI can be wielded like a fantastic sword. But if not, it just is a lump of metal just sitting around because there's nothing that is being sharpened by it. And so you end up in this space of just debt, like tech debt, just slop, right? In some of the vernacular kind of coming out of the system. And I feel like there's this moment of, if you don't understand what you're putting into it and understand how to evaluate it when it comes out, it sort of is just reduced to the point of bad data in, bad data out. Like that phrase has existed forever. But I think you could put the same thing around AI and prompting, in, of course, insert any other agentic model if you want to get more complicated. But the idea that if you don't understand what you're putting in and what you expect to get out before it comes out, then that's a tougher situation. I feel like should be an expectation there, right?
Yes, on the data in, data out, but I want to challenge the question of, or the statement of, leaders are losing their ability to think critically. Or I forget exactly the turn of phrase you used, because I think leaders aren't losing that at all. People who never had it at all, it's now being exposed. Like if you
Yeah.
just were a paper pusher,
Mm-hmm.
but leadership right now is being challenged to think critically more often and faster than ever before, to a certain degree of decision fatigue, because people can output at us so much faster. I was talking to a chief product officer who I really have a lot of respect for, and he said one of the things that he had done for, decades was that he would review people's product ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And he built an agent to ask the sort of questions about how it was aligned with the current goals, blah, 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 so that the agent could look at individuals' product briefs and give them feedback in real time without waiting to be on his calendar, so that when it got to his desk, it
Mm-hmm.
was a more refined idea. And it already answered more of the questions. And he could then add the special sauce only he could,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to, is this aligned with our current goals? Did you
Yeah.
give me a metric about how this is going to drive this? Did you identify which segment of our users is going, or whatever else it's going to
Yeah.
be? That
Yeah.
can be programmatized. But the
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting this together with the different pieces of the different product team and the idea of what the commercial team is doing and what the CFO has talked about what we need to do for this particular financial metric, and what the CEO has told me about the 10-year vision that he doesn't share with other people, and what I've heard in the boardroom, and what the marketing team is telling me based on the data they're seeing from their, like, all of those things like that. There's so much more information that's leading to a decision. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully you're keeping yourself out of the unimportant decisions, because now you can build things that can do them for you.
Yeah.
Because that stuff wasn't where you were most valuable anyways.
Mm-hmm.
That isn't outsourcing critical thinking. That's outsourcing the low level stuff that isn't your special sauce.
Yeah. Yep.
So that people who are younger than you can learn, if I can't answer these 10 questions, I shouldn't be showing this to the CPO.
Mm-hmm. So I I've got 14 paths sitting in front of me, Tammy, to walk down, and I'm hesitant to even put a toe in them. Like I'm seeing things like what do the big four consultancies think about AI right now? There's so much conversations happening about that. The lower level questions and answers that you just mentioned, how does that relate to the interns in the first years who are trying to figure out how to navigate the waters of this stuff, and are they just being, you know, stepped over because you could write an agent to give you the right 15 questions you always ask about a new product that's coming your way as you evaluate it. The idea around the ownership of the agent we haven't even touched on quite yet, but there's this exposure that happens when you start thinking about who does own the agent. And I might even go so far as to say something like, is it owned by your comment earlier, the HR department that puts it on an org chart? Is it owned by the IT department because they're the ones that actually create the agent and run its personality and its knowledge base and its brain? Or maybe it's the operations leader. Maybe it's a COO that does it because it actually operates within the organization itself. Or maybe, heck, it's the governance and compliance person that actually should manage it. But there's questions that
You want
are
to go
that
down
are.
that road?
What do you got for me?
Well, so first of all, when it comes to what are the big accounting and consulting firms thinking about AI, I hope, but I do not know, though some of
Mhm.
them are my clients, I hope that they are saying, how can we utilize AI to sharpen our critical thinking, to surface things that the teams of the smartest people in the room still haven't surfaced, that we
Mhm.
can better leverage the decades of data we are sitting on,
Yeah.
and decks and analyses, etc., that we are sitting on. Just because someone wasn't on a particular project doesn't mean that they shouldn't have the knowledge, right? There's that's what I want them to be thinking about.
Hmm.
And not how can we do these things faster so that we can charge more billable hours, because there's a whole issue with billable hours and they have to redo their entire financial model.
Yep.
So, like, leaving that aside, that's what they're thinking about with AI, or I hope they're thinking about with AI. For the nature of the management piece, I want to be clear that It wasn't that HR was putting out a management structure. It's that there was a technology that is an HR technology
Mhm.
that people used for org charts and other things, and they allowed for you to add an agent in the same way you would add an employee. And that agent needed a manager. And from my perspective, the future of work is that within every organization, sorry, every subset of the organization, whatever team, whether that's HR or legal or compliance, there is an individual, if not every individual, there's probably one individual who is competent in creating AI workflows and agents that
Mhm.
are about what that team does. And that may be multiple people that do that. But the idea is that if you are either the business owner, like you're saying, I need you to solve me this problem, or you are the developer, one of those two people owns the agent. And I'm sure organizationally sometimes it's one versus the other, but you don't want IT owning all of them. And you don't want everything being thrown at IT to build something. You want integrated people who are competent, who understand the what happens on this team,
Mhm.
who get trained in how to utilize AI and how to
Yeah.
build AI tools. And that they have a guild of people across the organization that are sharing ideas about new AI networks and opportunities and frameworks that could be helpful.
Yeah. Yep.
But like that's what I see as the future. I don't actually see it as everyone doing it. I feel like people will do some level of it, but in the same way, not everyone learned to code. Not everyone's going to learn how to really program this level of sophistication. Because
Mhm.
OutSystems is a former client of mine. That was a low code platform, right? There are still lots of people who never learned how to do that within organizations that use them. And that's okay. But the people who do, who are also competent as accountants and lawyers and compliance and sales, etc., and
Mhm.
training and HR, they should be within the organization and working in a way that helps operationally efficientize whatever you want to call it that team with tools called agents that help
Mhm.
everyone work better, more accurately,
Mhm.
more consistently, more confidently, etc.
Yeah. We covered a tremendous amount, and I'm going to leave it at that because I want to ask you a question about what happens when somebody who owns a P&L decides that they want to own the agents, and it's a curiosity that I've heard in a few different conversations. But I'm gonna say we don't get to answer that question. We're just gonna leave that for maybe another time that I get to drag you back onto another podcast. So we'll see how
But
that
I'll
goes.
give you one quick answer to that. My perspective on that one is
Yeah.
if you own a P&L, your job is to own that P&L. And part of owning that P&L is making sure the right agents are helping you achieve your goals. You should not be programming every agent. If you want to
Hmm.
build some agents in your free time, so you better know how to do it so that you can help things move along smoothly so you can have an intelligent conversation about it with your team that is generally tasked with it. If you want to MVP some agents and let other people take them over,
Hmm.
fantastic.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't be the one who's owning the bug fixing on the agent.
Yeah. Agreed. There's a tremendous amount of work within agents itself, not only from my compliance citadel as an organization that creates compliance layers for agents, but also agents that continue to, just like most software, right, continues to drift. We know especially agents drift. You can't tell it to do one thing and it persists forever. That's why you have to have good ownership. To your point, that's why you have to have clear boundaries and guardrails. It's why you have to have clear compliance layers to ensure that they're being looked after in the right kinds of ways. Um, but we've barely scratched the surface on all of these different pieces, Tammy. And I know that you've got a great book that's going to be coming out soon, Leader Within.
Yes,
I'm looking
Unleash
forward
Your
to.
Leader Within.
Yeah.
It'll be on Amazon. I mean, you can look it up on Amazon right now. It won't send to you until after September 1st. It's a really short read about the behaviors of great leaders, which are in lead. And the idea is I wanted to provide something that was easy and cheap because it'll be also available on ebook for 99 cents or something that
Mm,
provides you either as a scaffolding for how do you talk about leadership on your team so that you can develop new leaders, or if you yourself are trying to pick up on becoming a stronger leader, whatever that means, it will help you assess where you are currently strong and where you need some work.
terrific.
Yeah.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for your time, Tami. I hope you continue the Greece sun glow that you have.
Oh, I
You've been
will be.
a wonderful guest. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me, Joe. This was super fun.
Yeah.